And the reason why we're going to anchor our concept of leadership in the work to be done, the problem to be solved, the challenges to be met, is because if we were only to focus on the hands that it takes, the personal abilities, we would begin to quickly discover that these physical or personal abilities are nonspecific. You can have phenomenal analytical capacity and a lot of knowledge about the human body. But, are you a cardiologist? Are you a pathologist? Are you doing research? There are a lot of different things you could be doing with those same hands and those same tools. So when people start the conversation about leadership by focusing on, here are the personal capacities. This is what it means to become a leader, to be a leader. Independent of the challenge we're facing, it very quickly becomes in psychology we would call it a Rorschach test or a projection, where people begin to project into this all of their favorite qualities. Whether or not they're really relevant to meet these challenges, that's untested. Similarly, people tend to define leadership in terms of the powers, the tools of power and influence, authority, persuasion, charisma. But one could have all of those tools and not practice any leadership. Those tools are useful in lots of walks of life. Here's another example. One would say that to practice leadership, it requires courage. It requires a stomach for conflict. It requires a stomach for ambiguity. It requires the ability to listen. It requires the ability to relate with people. Well, all of that's important if you're raising teenage children. To raise a teenager, you've got to have courage. You have to have a tolerance for conflict. You have to have a tolerance for uncertainty, because you just pray that it's going to turn out. You've got to be able to listen. You have to be able to relate with this creature who you used to know, but what's happened? And in fact, those same abilities are useful in lots of different walks of life. There are many, many walks of life where those abilities are relevant. So to say these are the defining characteristics of a leader ends up being actually quite misguided. And there have been, in fact, thousands of studies to try to define, here are the key characteristics. Nobody's ever come up with, here are the key characteristics. Indeed, when they even do those studies, they first select, who are we going to look at to define the characteristics. They usually start with people who have the tools, people who are in positions of power or authority. And then now let's look at how what is it taken for them to gain those tools? All of it's disoriented from the work to be done, the challenge to be met, the house to be built. So that's where we're going to anchor our understanding of leadership, is in the work to be done. What are we trying to build here, in our little house? What kind of house is it?